I still remember the first thing I heard when I woke up after brain surgery. It wasn't the beeping machines. It wasn't my doctor's voice. It wasn't even my own mother crying. It was my younger sister leaning so close to my ear that I could barely see her through my blurry vision as she whispered, "Don't react. Dad already sold your house while you were under." I honestly thought I was hallucinating because of the anesthesia. I couldn't even move properly, my head felt like it had been split in half, and every attempt to speak sent pain shooting through my skull. But then I saw the tears running down her face and I realized she wasn't joking. She wasn't confused, she was terrified. While I was unconscious fighting for my life, my own father had emptied my home, signed paperwork I never approved, and somehow convinced everyone that he had every right to do it. So tell me, if you woke up from brain surgery and discovered your own family had stolen everything you'd spent your entire life building, what would you have done? Because what happened next completely destroyed my family forever. Before everything fell apart, I actually believed I had one of those families people envied. My name is Emily. I'm 34 years old, and for most of my life I was the dependable daughter. I was the one who remembered birthdays, paid everyone's bills when they forgot, drove my parents to doctor's appointments, and showed up whenever there was a family emergency. My younger sister Lily was always considered the emotional one, while I was the responsible one. Our father, Richard, loved reminding everyone that he had sacrificed everything for us after our mother died when we were teenagers. We believed him. We admired him. We defended him whenever relatives complained about how controlling he could be. Looking back now, I realize we confused control with love because that's all we'd ever known. I worked harder than anyone I knew. After college, I became a successful software project manager, working long hours until I finally saved enough to buy my dream house. It wasn't a mansion, but it was mine. Every wall color, every piece of furniture, every flower in the garden represented years of overtime, skipped vacations, and sacrifices. I paid every mortgage payment myself. My father's name wasn't on the deed. My sister's name wasn't on the deed. Nobody helped me buy it. But because I loved my family, I always left the spare key with Dad in case of emergencies. That decision turned out to be the biggest mistake of my life. About a year before the surgery, I started having terrible headaches. At first, I blamed stress. Then I began forgetting simple words during meetings. One afternoon, I fainted in my office, and that's when doctors discovered a benign brain tumor pressing against critical tissue. They assured me surgery had an excellent success rate, but hearing the words brain surgery changes something inside you. Suddenly, every conversation feels important. Every hug feels like it might be your last. I was terrified, but my father promised he'd take care of everything while I recovered. He even insisted on handling my mail, watering my plants, and checking on the house every day. I thought I was lucky to have such a devoted parent. The night before surgery, Dad squeezed my hand and smiled. "Don't worry about anything. Your home is safe. I'll protect everything until you're back on your feet." I cried because I felt grateful. Lily looked uncomfortable, almost like she wanted to say something, but she stayed quiet. I didn't understand why until much later. The surgery lasted almost 9 hours. There were complications involving swelling, and I remained unconscious longer than expected. During those days, while doctors monitored my brain activity and nurses adjusted medications, my father wasn't sitting beside my bed praying for my recovery like everyone believed. He was busy making phone calls. When I finally became conscious, Lily waited until Dad stepped out to get coffee before telling me the truth. She explained that strange people had been walking through my house carrying clipboards while I was hospitalized. Dad told neighbors I had decided to move after my recovery. Furniture disappeared into moving trucks. Family photographs vanished. My jewelry collection, which had belonged to Mom, was gone. Lily confronted him, but he told her to stay out of adult business. She secretly took pictures with her phone because something felt wrong. I couldn't believe it. I kept shaking my head, convinced there had to be an explanation. Maybe he was renovating. Maybe he was storing my belongings somewhere safe. Maybe Lily misunderstood. Then Dad returned to my hospital room carrying flowers, and wearing the same comforting smile I'd trusted my entire life. "How's my brave girl?" he asked. I looked him directly in the eyes and whispered, "Where's my house?" For just a fraction of a second, I saw panic flash across his face before he recovered. "What are you talking about?" "My house." He laughed. "Oh, sweetheart, don't stress yourself. The doctors said you shouldn't worry." That answer told me everything. The following week, I was discharged earlier than expected because my recovery was going well. Dad kept insisting I stay at his place instead of going home. "You'll need help walking. You shouldn't be alone. The house isn't ready." Every excuse sounded stranger than the last. Finally, I demanded he drive me there. He refused. So Lily called a rideshare without telling him. I still remember pulling onto my street. My stomach dropped before we even reached the driveway because I didn't recognize the cars parked outside. My flower beds had been ripped out. The porch swing my mother loved was gone. The curtains I'd picked myself had been replaced. Then I saw children running through my front yard. I walked toward my own front door with surgical stitches still hidden beneath my hair. A woman I'd never seen opened it before I could knock. "Can I help you?" she asked politely. "I think you're in my house." She looked confused. "We bought this house 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks? While I was unconscious. I almost collapsed. The woman invited us inside after I explained everything. Every room looked different. My furniture had disappeared. My artwork was gone. Even the family piano my mother taught us on had vanished. She showed me copies of closing documents. My signature was on every page. Only it wasn't my signature. Someone had forged it. The buyer had paid everything legally through a title company. They had no idea they were victims too. The police arrived after I reported fraud. That's when the nightmare truly began. Detectives started asking questions about powers of attorney. I never signed one. Medical authorization. Only for healthcare. Financial authorization. Never. Dad had somehow convinced a dishonest notary that I had signed paperwork before surgery. Except hospital records proved I was already sedated at the exact time those documents were supposedly signed. The investigation exploded. As detectives dug deeper, they discovered Dad hadn't simply sold my house. He'd taken out loans using forged documents. He'd emptied investment accounts. He'd sold heirloom jewelry. He'd even listed my car online. Everything pointed to one shocking reality. He had planned this before my surgery ever happened. Apparently, he believed I might not survive. And if I did, he expected me to be too cognitively impaired to fight back. At this point, I honestly didn't know whether I hated him more for stealing from me or for assuming I'd never recover enough to expose him. So let me ask you something before I tell you what happened next. If you discovered your own father had spent months planning to erase your entire life while you were lying unconscious in a hospital bed, would you forgive him because he was family? Or would you fight for every single thing he stole, no matter what it cost? Pause for a moment and think about what you would do, because my next decision changed every relationship I had left. I hired the best fraud attorney I could afford. Dad called constantly. At first he begged. Then he blamed me. You don't understand how much pressure I was under. I deserved something after all I sacrificed. The family needed money. None of it was true. The investigation uncovered over $600,000 hidden in accounts only he controlled. He hadn't stolen because he was desperate. He stole because he believed he could. Relatives started taking sides. Some begged me to drop the charges. He's your father. He's getting older. Prison will kill him. Funny how nobody asked whether betrayal had almost killed me. Meanwhile, Lily stood beside me every single day. She admitted she'd noticed strange behavior months earlier. Dad had repeatedly asked questions about property transfers and inheritance laws. She never imagined he was planning to steal from his own daughter. The criminal case lasted nearly 18 months. Every hearing forced me to relive everything. Dad refused every plea deal. He insisted I had gifted him the house. When prosecutors presented hospital records proving I couldn't physically sign documents, his entire defense collapsed. Then forensic handwriting experts compared my genuine signature to the forged paperwork. The differences were undeniable. I watched my father realize in real time that he was going to lose. For the first time in my life, he looked small. Not powerful. Not intimidating. Just afraid. He was convicted of fraud, forgery, identity theft, and financial exploitation. The judge didn't hide her anger. She said one sentence I'll never forget. Few crimes are more disturbing than exploiting a family member during a medical crisis. He received a lengthy prison sentence and was ordered to pay restitution. Recovering my house wasn't easy. Thankfully, the innocent buyers cooperated completely. Insurance companies, title investigators, and the courts eventually reversed the fraudulent sale. It took nearly 2 years, but one rainy afternoon, I unlocked my own front door again. The rooms were empty. The walls echoed. Almost everything sentimental was gone forever. But it was still mine. Instead of trying to recreate the past, I started over. Fresh paint. New furniture. New memories. Lily moved into the guest room for a while, and together we rebuilt what was left of our family. Sometimes people ask whether I ever visited Dad in prison. The answer is no. The father I loved existed only in the version of him I created inside my own mind. The real man had been willing to gamble on my death for money. There's no conversation capable of fixing that. Brain surgery changed my life. Not because of the scar hidden beneath my hair. Not because recovery took months. It changed my life because waking up revealed who the people around me truly were. The operation removed the tumor. The betrayal removed every illusion I still carried. Looking back now, I don't believe strength means never being hurt. I think real strength is refusing to let someone else's betrayal define the rest of your life. I lost years, possessions, and the father I thought I knew, but I didn't lose myself. And that's the one thing he could never steal. If you were on my side, make sure you like this video. If you enjoy emotional stories with shocking twists like this one, subscribe because there are plenty more coming. Most importantly, tell me honestly in the comments, would you have forgiven your own father, or would you have done exactly what I did? I read as many comments as I can, and I'm genuinely curious what you think. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I'll see you all in the next story.